In 1881, in Red Hollow Canyon, New Mexico Territory,
the deafening sound of a hammer pounding against the oak doors of the church sealed the fate of a woman before the eyes of the entire town. Elsa Reed stood there amidst the swirling red dust. Her father had died less than a week ago. The blood on his grave hadn't even dried, but the notice was clear and unmistakable. Reed Hollow Ranch was officially foreclosed.
She was publicly accused of harboring Tom Rusk, the very robber who had shot and killed her father. Her inheritance papers had vanished without a trace.
That very night, the vital Red Hollow Trail was blockaded by the bounty hunter leader, Wade Crow. He tightened his grip on every small ranch in the area under the guise of security. The crowd fell silent, casting icy stares at Elsa as if she were a despicable accomplice. Beneath her worn hat, her eyes were dry and emotionless. The humiliation wouldn't allow her to shed a single tear. She slowly walked forward, her bare hands pulling out the rusty iron nail, folding the wanted poster and tucking it into her pocket like a silent oath. At the bottom of the notice, Crow had offered a reward to anyone who could find the man in the dusty coat riding a black horse who had appeared in the area. He called him the Ghost of the Dead. He didn't know that a man being hunted to the brink of death was the only hope for survival for the girl the town thought had lost everything. Returning to the desolate wooden house, Elsa's blood-stained fingers dug deep into the lining of her father's worn coat. A tattered map lay hidden. A thick, dark stain of dried blood covered the scribbled lines, pointing directly to the abandoned carriage station at the bottom of the canyon. The truth wasn't buried underground. It awaited her in the place of death. The setting sun cast long, blood-red streaks across the ruins of the old carriage station deep in the canyon. Elsa gripped her Winchester rifle tightly, stepping silently across the decaying wooden planks to find the note her father had hidden. A black war horse stood silently by the dry well. A few steps away, a man in a tattered coat was washing away the pungent bloodstains from his rough hands. The dry click of a cocked rifle shattered the silence. Elsa's rifle barrel was pointed directly at his back. The man didn't flinch. He didn't touch the Remington rifle hanging loosely at his side, only slowly flicked the water from his hand onto the red dust. "You are standing in the footprints of the man who killed your father." His voice was deep and resonant, like shattering stone. He turned around. The cold eyes of a man who had lived like a ghost swept across Elsa's heightened vigilance. He was Cole Vane. Cole wasn't looking for gold, nor was he concerned with a warrant. He was tracking Tom Rusk, a man who not only robbed ships, but was hired to burn land deeds to wipe out small ranches. Elsa didn't lower her gun. A wandering gunman carrying the scent of death was like another knife to her throat. But Cole saw the resilience weighing on those small shoulders. A woman standing on crumbling ground, determined not to retreat. From the distant sandstone cliff, a light flashed from Jonah Bell's binoculars. The hunter silently turned his horse, carrying a message back to Wade Crow. Reed Girl isn't alone. The next morning, Elsa's leather shoes clattered sharply on the wooden floor of the town's general store. Reed Hollow Ranch's ledger was flipped open. The amount of feed had doubled. The transportation fees through the Red Hollow Trail had been brazenly inflated. Elsa's finger froze on a concession paper. Her father's signature lay there, granting full rights to the trail to someone else. But the final hook was completely forged. The land clerk avoided her fiery gaze, curtly uttering a single dry sentence. "The original records are lost." "An unfortunate incident, Miss Reed." A polite but razor-sharp voice came from the doorway. Wade Crow entered, obscuring the only light that shone into the room. He took off his fedora, uttering a scathing proposition. Sell the ranch to save her honor, or the sheriff outside would arrest her for harboring the robber Tom Rusk. Outside the dust-covered window, Cole Vane leaned against a wooden post. Beneath the pulled-down brim of his hat, he heard every word. Cole realized Wade Crow wasn't just a bounty hunter after fame. He was using the law, debt, and rumors as a noose, slowly tightening around his prey. Amidst the mocking stares and ruthless pressure, Elsa stood tall. She bit her lip, refusing to throw her father's hard-earned money into the hands of a robber. Just as Elsa stepped out the door, a poor child darted past, thrusting a crumpled piece of paper into her hand.
That was the remainder of the telegram her father sent before he died. A single line: "Don't trust anyone with a Santa Fe badge."
A red wind howled through the rocky crevices, carrying the dry, ominous scent of an ill omen. A long section of Reed Hollow Ranch's barbed wire fence had been cut open.
The bewildered cattle wandered toward the boundary of the land occupied by Wade Crow. If they weren't herded back before sunset, Crow would use the law of the jungle to charge livestock trespassing and confiscate Elsa's remaining livelihood.
Elsa spurred her horse into the sandstorm. But she wasn't alone. Cole Vane followed closely behind. He wasn't there to be a hero. The cold, sharp eyes of a former scout scanned the fake hoofprints Tom Rusk had left to mislead the pursuers. Amidst the swirling blizzard, they didn't exchange a word. Elsa continuously howled, skillfully herding the cattle through the narrow, rocky crevices. Meanwhile, Cole bent down to pick up the barbed wire, a clean cut from an army knife. It wasn't from wild animals, nor from a raging storm. Amidst the swirling dust, the collision occurred. Elsa insisted on taking the barbed wire to town as proof of her innocence, but Cole brushed her off. He only wanted to follow the current trail to shoot Rusk in the head. Elsa's bare hands bled from straining to pull taut the rusty coil of barbed wire. Cole paused. He offered no empty words of comfort. He silently pulled off his worn leather gloves and tossed them to her. Elsa said no thanks. She caught them, slipped on the oversized gloves, and continued hammering. Love in the West doesn't begin with sweet words. It blossoms from sweat mixed with blood and dust. Night fell. Just as they reached the ranch gate, a huge shadow loomed over them. A bloated horse carcass lay before the gate. Draped across the saddle was Tom Rusk's blood-soaked scarf, along with a piece of paper pinned with a deer antler knife. Hand over the map, or you will be hanged with him at dawn tomorrow. A flash of memory struck Elsa. She recalled the blood-stained note and her father's message. The safest place was also the most dangerous. The abandoned carriage station at the bottom of the canyon. Thick darkness swallowed the decaying wood as Elsa and Cole stepped inside. A flickering match cast a thin line of light on the bullet-riddled wall. They flipped over broken planks. Beneath the sawdust lay an empty metal box, a torn piece of a land survey book, and a telegram receipt bearing the name Miles Pike, the infamous Detective Pinkerton. Cole clutched the receipt. The stark truth was revealed. Pinkerton's agency wasn't hunting Tom Rusk for justice. Someone was pulling the strings to pave the way for Wade Crow to seize control of the entire Red Hollow Trail. From deep within the cold cast-iron stove, Elsa pulled out a metal tube. Inside was half a map bearing her father's signature. The other half, the most important part proving the boundary, had vanished. Elsa's trembling fingers touched a tiny family symbol her father had carefully carved into the wooden floor. The young girl's resilient wall threatened to crumble. Cole saw her shoulders tremble slightly. He didn't step forward to comfort her, nor did he remove his worn hat to offer condolences. He slowly turned his back, standing with his legs spread apart across the dilapidated doorway, pointing his rifle out into the icy night. He used his sturdy back to give her a few brief seconds of vulnerability, a few seconds to shed tears for her deceased father without anyone judging. But the West wouldn't tolerate weakness for too long. Graveled stones crunched. The pounding of horses' hooves shattered the stillness of the canyon. Through a gap in the planks, 6 dark figures, rifles at the ready, lined up. Wade Crow and his pack of bounty hunters had sealed off all escape routes. Wade Crow's icy voice echoed against the cliffs, reverberating like a death sentence. "Come out, hand over the map, and I'll spare your life, Elsa." He named Cole Vane as the accomplice, hiding the bandit Tom Rusk. 2 birds with 1 stone, legitimizing the massacre and whitewashing the land grab. Inside the station, Cole gestured towards the edge of the decaying floorboards, signaling Elsa to hide in the underground cellar with the metal pipe. But she shook her head. Her amber eyes were fixed on the cracks in the wall. She wanted to see the face of the man hiding her father's death certificate. 2 grim bounty hunters kicked open the rusty door and stormed into the thick darkness. There was no frenzied gunfire. Cole glided like a ghost. He took advantage of the swirling dust and the blind spot in the narrow doorway, striking the first man down with the butt of his rifle, then disarming the second before he could pull the trigger. He didn't pull the trigger to take the lives of blind fools. He controlled the violence with terrifying precision. From atop the high cliff, Jonah Bell, the pursuer, watched through binoculars. The seasoned old hunter shuddered slightly. He realized the unknown gunman wasn't fighting to escape. He was risking his life to keep another man alive. Elsa realized it too. Beneath the guise of a notorious vagabond, Cole wasn't a bloodthirsty monster. He was an iron shield in a storm of bullets. But the arrogant cheers outside suddenly died down. From the top of the canyon, Detective Miles Pike appeared on horseback, brandishing a warrant with Pinkerton's bright red seal. Cole Vane must be apprehended at all costs, and Tom Rusk must be captured alive. A suffocating silence fell. In the dim light of a dying match, Elsa tremblingly pieced together the code on her father's receipt with the contents of the order Pike had just read. A horrifying truth shattered, turning everything upside down. The vague bounty on a man in a dust coat riding a black horse wasn't a mistake. It was a perfect trap set by Miles Pike to use Cole as bait. Dozens of bounty hunters had been drawn to Red Hollow just to stop Cole, giving Tom Rusk enough time to get the remaining half of the land deed to the county office, to sell it outright to Crow's men. Time was running out. If that half of the deed vanished before dawn tomorrow, the entire Red Hollow Trail would legally fall into Wade Crow's hands. Cole's eyes darkened. After years of chasing the vengeful ghost, he never imagined his own rage would be used by others to reap profit. Elsa tightened her grip on the metal pipe. Her goal was no longer to prove her innocence. If she gave up tonight, dozens of small families around the canyon would die of thirst and starvation on their own land. They couldn't hide in this hole waiting for dawn. They had to break through the encirclement. But Wade Crow, the cunning old fox, wouldn't give them that chance. He lit a blazing torch, sneered, and tossed it straight at a henchman galloping toward Reed Hollow. "Burn that brat's hay stash to the ground. Let's see how long she can stay hidden in her rat hole." From afar, a thick column of black smoke began to billow up into the freezing night sky. They slipped through the narrow crevice behind the wagon station, disappearing into the night, leaving behind the frenzied roars of Wade Crow. But upon arriving at Reed Hollow Ranch, they were met with a devastating sight. The winter hayshed was engulfed in flames. The water tanks were smashed to pieces. The cattle wailed in terror amidst the sandstorm. Wade Crow hadn't just burned the farm, he wanted to cut off all life. He had sealed off the only access to the communal well. His declaration echoed through the night. Any ranch that didn't sign the Red Hollow Trail concession agreement would see its livestock die of thirst. But Elsa didn't give up. In the dim moonlight, she shone a match on her father's tattered map, following the ancient markings to find an underground spring hidden deep beneath the red sandstone cliffs. Cole Vane rolled up his sleeves, silently lifting heavy stones and prying away the hard gravel to clear the waterway. Mud, sweat, and even blood from old wounds clung tightly to their skin. In the bone-chilling cold of the desert, there was no embrace or whispered words. Elsa realized that love in this remote frontier wasn't found in vows of eternal love. It was present in the back of the man willing to stay, toiling alongside her in the barren earth and rocks when all glory and hope had faded. The first cool water gushed from the earth, saving the exhausted livestock. Dawn had just broken, but the sunlight brought no peace. Along with the first rays of light came the pounding hooves of the bribed sheriff. He issued an arrest warrant. Elsa Reed was officially shackled for concealing a crime and defying the lockdown order. Elsa was escorted back to town. Wade Crow wanted to confine her to a cramped cell, silencing her until the land grab was complete on paper. But physical imprisonment couldn't restrain a mind that was utterly clear-headed. Through the cold bars of the police station, Elsa's keen eyes began to gather fragments of truth. The ink on the foreclosure order book on the table was still fresh. Her father's signature, forged by a forger, had a completely wrong final stroke. The drunken land clerk sprawled on the sofa, muttering in his delirium. Old Reed, he didn't die as quickly as they say. And most valuable of all, a page from the land register, hidden inside the sheriff's half-closed safe. Taking advantage of the guard's drowsiness, Elsa removed her iron hairpin. She reached through the crack in the door, skillfully retrieved the piece of paper, quickly tore off a corner containing the crucial seal, and rolled it up, hiding it deep in the hem of her dress. At the same time, at the other end of town, Cole Vane had spotted his prey. In the dark stables, Tom Rusk was hastily saddled, preparing to flee. The darkness concealed the cold barrel of a Remington rifle pointed directly at Rusk's neck. After more than 5 years of relentless pursuit, the ghost of hatred was now just a trigger pull away from Cole. But Tom Rusk showed no fear. He slowly turned his head, a sinister grin playing on his lips. "You can shoot me, Cole, but if I die, the Reed girl will be sentenced to be hanged before sunrise." The Remington gun barrel pressed against Tom Rusk's neck. The acrid smell of gunpowder from past battles reminded Cole Vane of the blood feud that had haunted him for half a decade. This man held all the secrets. He knew who was pulling the strings, where the other half of the land deed was hidden, and why Elsa's father had to die. A squeeze of the trigger, a sharp, sharp bang. Cole's vengeful ghost would be set free. But Tom Rusk didn't tremble. He sneered. "You can shoot me, Cole, but if I die, the Reed girl will be hanged before sunrise." The image of Elsa, defiant and alone against an entire town, flashed through Cole's mind. Revenge for the past or saving the future? Cole took a deep breath. He pushed the hammer down. Turning the butt of the gun, he delivered a devastating blow to Rusk's temple, knocking him unconscious on the spot. Searching the robber, Cole seized the cell keys. For the first time in his life, the anonymous gunman decided to spare his enemy, choosing to protect the living rather than satisfy the dead. As Cole flung open the iron gate of the police station, Elsa looked up. She saw that his hands were unstained. Without explanation, she understood what he had sacrificed for her. They escaped.
Rusk had regained consciousness and escaped thanks to the intervention of his accomplice, Crow. But in his panic, he dropped a leather document bag bearing Wade Crow's wax seal.
Before the darkness had even lifted, Crow's blaring voice echoed through the town. Tomorrow at dawn, Reed Hollow Ranch will be forcibly auctioned off at the canyon entrance.
Wade Crow had no patience for the sham laws he himself had concocted. He wanted to eradicate the problem before dawn.
A raging fire consumed the old stables of Reed Hollow Ranch. The last of the cattle were driven away. 2 loyal workers were held hostage at gunpoint. Facing the inferno, Elsa was forced to her knees, signing a temporary land concession agreement in exchange for the lives of her men. But Crow didn't know that the trembling ink Elsa had just used was the deceptive symbol her father had taught her. Irrefutable proof that she had been coerced. From the shadows, Cole rushed out, firing his weapon to protect Elsa. But alone, he couldn't withstand the hail of bullets. He was shot. Blood stained his shoulder, and Cole collapsed onto the barren ground. There was no time to hesitate. Elsa gritted her teeth, yanked Cole up, and with all her might, pulled him down into an abandoned potato cellar, narrowly escaping death. They had lost their ranch on paper, lost their entire herd of cattle, lost their prestige in the town. Their only remaining advantage was the piece of paper hidden in her skirt and the map in Elsa's memory. Watching her father's estate engulfed in flames, Elsa's heart ached. Cole gritted his teeth, intending to charge out and fight to the death, but Elsa's blood-stained hands held him back. For the first time, the proud hunter had to back down, yielding his fate to the woman beside him. Elsa's voice rang out clearly amidst the crackling of the burning wood. To reclaim the road, I don't need another corpse. I need the entire town to see the real landmark with their own eyes. In the damp, moldy potato cellar, the acrid smell of the burnt farm above seeped through the cracks. But there was no longer panic in Elsa's eyes. She opened her mouth, repeating her father's last words. The Red Hollow Trail had never existed only on lifeless pages.
That vital path was nailed to the earth by 3 ancient stone markers. A slab near the dry well, a boulder beneath a dead juniper, and the final marker at the mouth of the canyon. Just exposing these 3 markers to the entire town would render Wade Crow's forged map useless.
Cole Vane loaded the last bullets into the cylinder of his Remington. He wanted to step out there, to clear the way for her, but Elsa pressed her small hand against the cold barrel. "If you go first, they'll only see a killer," she said, her voice clear. "I must be the one standing on my father's land." In the darkness, Cole looked at the widowed woman, homeless and destitute, yet never having lost her pride. He nodded, stepping back, accepting her right to decide her own fate. That very night, they went to Jonah Bell's hut. The old hunter flinched at the sight of Cole's gun, but Elsa stepped forward to shield him. She didn't cry or beg. She threw the forged signature of her father under the bed, her gaze fixed on the old man's eyes, heavy with guilt. "Do you want to live out your remaining days as a proud tracker, or die a slow death as a coward who knows the truth but chooses to remain silent. Dawn tore through the night. The entire town was herded to the Red Hollow to witness the signing of the transfer agreement. And from the mist, Tom Rusk emerged, dragging his bleeding wounds, carrying the last half of the land deed in exchange for his life. The desert wind howled through the canyon gate. Wade Crow sat comfortably at his wooden desk. Beside him, the sheriff, the land clerk, and Detective Miles Pike. The legal land grab was just a signature away. But before the pen could touch the paper, the crowd parted. Elsa Reed emerged from the dust and smoke. Her dress was blackened with soot, but her steps were as steady as desert roots. In her hand was a land register bearing a genuine seal. Cole Vane stood slightly behind her, his rifle pointed to the ground. He was a shadow of death, blocking all avenues of attack so Elsa could speak. Elsa pointed directly at 3 imposing stone markers along the road, clearly reading each survey mark her father had drawn on the ground decades earlier. The crowd began to murmur. Jonah Bell, the old hunter, stepped out from Crow's ranks. His voice trembled, but was clear. "The warrant is fake. Tom Rusk was hired here by Crow himself. Cole Vane didn't hide him," Miles Pike hissed, brandishing the Pinkerton warrant to seize all evidence. But Elsa stepped back. She didn't give the papers to the gunman. She handed them to a traveling judge who had just disembarked from a carriage stuck at the end of the road. Knowing the truth had come out, Tom Rusk panicked and spurred his horse to flee. Cole raised his gun, a perfect opportunity to finish off his enemy. But instead of aiming at Rusk's head, Cole's gun barrel recoiled slightly. The bullet struck the reins. The horse neighed and collapsed. Rusk fell to the dusty ground, surviving to face the gallows. Wade Crow frantically drew his gun and aimed it at Elsa. The wound in his shoulder slowed Cole down by half a beat. But Elsa was not a passive prey. She snatched the oil lamp from the table and smashed it against the trunk of Crow's car, which was laden with fake documents. Flames erupted, and thick black smoke obscured her vision. Bang! Cole's bullet ripped through the smoke, shattering Crow's hand holding the gun. At the same time, Jonah Bell lunged forward and knocked the corrupt sheriff to the ground. Crow writhed, clutching his bloodied hand, trying to grab the gun that had fallen to the ground. But Tom Rusk's distant shout extinguished all his hope. "Crow hired me to kill Reed." The truth was laid bare in the sunlight. The villain fell, not from a fatal bullet, but from the power of the light of justice that Elsa had steadfastly upheld. As Crow was shackled, Elsa silently turned her head to look toward Reed Hollow Ranch. The vital artery had been saved, but her home was now nothing but jagged columns of black smoke stretching across the sky. A few days later, the wind on Red Hollow Pass no longer carried the smell of gunpowder. The forced concession was torn to shreds. Tom Rusk and Wade Crow were taken away to await judgment. Miles Pike left town in humiliating silence. But victory in the West always came at a very high price. Elsa stood silently before the ruins of Reed Hollow Ranch. The hay shed was burned to ashes. The fence had collapsed. Half the cattle were gone, and the legal debts remained. A few steps away, Cole Vane silently saddled his jet-black horse. His pursuit was over. Theoretically, he had no reason to stay. Elsa watched his retreating figure. There were no sobbing hugs, no weak pleas. She only looked at the charred fence posts, her voice soft. One man cannot rebuild an entire fence before the cold season arrives. Cole's hand, gripping the reins, froze. A long silence fell. Slowly, He untied the reins. He lowered the saddle. He walked toward the charred wagon, picked up a heavy iron hammer, and trudged toward the first fence post. Elsa didn't smile immediately. A slight tremor ran through her eyes. From her pocket, she took out a pair of worn, tattered leather gloves and silently handed them to the man before her. The desert wind still swept through Red Hollow Canyon. But today, at the very spot where the unjust notice had been nailed, a new wooden stake had just been driven into the barren earth. The hammer's rhythmic, solid blows echoed through the valley, regular and powerful, like the heartbeat of a house rising from the ashes. The desert wind would eventually subside, giving way to life emerging from the ashes. Thank you for staying until the very end to witness the rebirth of Red Hollow. If these gritty survival stories and human kindness in this remote frontier resonate with you, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your companionship is the flame that warms our future journeys. See you at the end of the trail.